Hi, I'm Eric Ostro. Live at the Lortel is about to start. For Season 2, While Theaters Are Dark, we are discussing with our guests their thoughts on the reckoning the theater community is facing for systemic racism and their vision for the future of the American theater. To broaden our perspective, I am sharing my platform with co-hosts from the BIPOC community. We offer these conversations to help us learn and to start the healing process. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Live at the Lortel. My name is Eric Ostro. We have a very exciting night. It was a last-minute addition thanks to these two incredible artists that we have coming on this evening. First, I'd like to introduce her first time as a co-host with me, my new best friend, Miss Ann James. Ann.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, my
How
queen.
You?
How are
Hi.
you?
You know, I couldn't be better. It is such a joy and an honor to be with you here tonight. It is. It really is. Thank you.
It is. And when we didn't, when our other co-host, who we usually work with, Joy, you were the first person I thought of. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm actually going to talk, before I bring on Karen and Eden, I'm going to talk a little bit about Artists for Economic Transparency, AFECT. Was formed in 2020 by Karen Olivo and Eden Espinosa on the heels of continued violence and injustice against Black, Indigenous people of color. Conversations were started in response to the racism that is prevalent in the American theater, and it came to light that prominent Broadway names had repeatedly contributed to political candidates and movements that directly contradict the ideals of many artists in the industry. Armed with this knowledge, Olivo and Espinosa vowed to withhold their artistic services from any theater, company, or persons who would knowingly fund organizations that perpetrate inequality. I am a huge fan of what they have started. I'm so excited to talk about it. Please welcome these two incredible artists, Karen Olivo and Eden Espinosa. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. We're missing someone.
I don't see Eden.
Eden?
Hi, I'm here.
Is your camera on?
No? Yeah, my
Are
camera's
you?
on. I haven't touched a thing.
Wow. So
Oh,
weird.
it says they okay, well.
You can hear us, so, right?
Yeah, I can see you and hear you.
Wow. So weird. Okay. All right. Well, let's start it. Maybe it will just come up. Let's just keep Karen, you've had a very quiet couple of weeks in your life.
Rude.
Yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster for you, and I wanted to see how you were doing. How are you doing?
Thanks for asking. I feel like the whole world is kind of having a bit of a week. Today being a very emotional and important day. I mean, before we start, I do just want to say I'm streaming in from the unceded land of the Ho-Chunk. I just really briefly want to just describe what I look like. I'm like cafe latte color. I have really short, wavy black hair. I'm wearing a shirt that is burgundy and gray and has some checks on it. And I'm in the basement of my art studio. And I'm holding it together. I've got a good support group. I've got Eden and my friend Brandon, who we now see. But it's, I think we're all just trying to get through the days.
Yeah, it's been quite a couple of weeks. I want to say thank you for speaking out. Obviously, the video that you did speaks for itself. I wanted to start and maybe give you some space to talk about your own experience, maybe with harassment or abuse or anything you're comfortable talking about, whether it occurred in the context of the industry or not. But I wanted to give you some space to perhaps talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I think that the article that came out in the Hollywood Reporter about Scott Rudin really struck a chord with me because I am a survivor of both rape and domestic abuse. And so it's a different conversation, I think, when someone has the courage to come out about what's happened to them and no one validates it. And it becomes just the silence for me was something that was, I think I've said this to Eden, it kind of cracked me open. And then it really started to make me think about like how this industry has really done a number to a lot of us and how there's just so much, there's so much silence around injustice in our industry. And it seems crazy because this is an industry in which you would think is the most inclusive, and we make art, for God's sake, you know, we create something where there was nothing out of the ether. So it really doesn't fit with what my idea of what our art world should be like. And so that was sort of the catalyst of it. And along with everything that Eden and I have been trying to like grapple with over this last year, it just seemed like something had to be done. And, you know, Eden and I are not, we've already said we're not working for people who are going to do it the wrong way. So
Correct.
It was pretty much, I kind of feel like you knew this was going to happen. I don't know why I was surprised.
Well, I mean,
bring in,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'd like to bring in, you know, just something that very powerful about this. We speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard, nor welcome, but we are silent, we're still afraid, so it's better to speak.
I'm losing you, my darling. I'm losing your words.
To create that monumental IG. What were you thinking about?
Oh, everything that you said, I know was so good just because I know who you are, Anne, and we didn't catch it
And
because we lost
can you
you.
say it? Yeah, because we
I'll
lost
say
you.
I'll repeat it again.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you need me to read the quote again as well?
Sure. Yes,
Please.
please.
Okay, so what you were saying just now really inspired me to think about this quote. And the quote is by Audre Lorde. And Audre Lorde said, "When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we're still afraid. So it's better to speak." And my question to you, Karen, darling, was what were you thinking of when you decided to make that monumental IG? What was going through your mind?
I was hurt. Like I said before, I'm a survivor, and I mean I never came out about my rape or really about the domestic abuse that I was a part of for a really long time, and then to see a group of young individuals that have so much to lose in terms of this business come out and do it. It just like, I was just thinking about like, we can't do this anymore. We can't ignore survivors. We have to actually address this. Yeah, that's all I was thinking about. And also like, I'm just so hurt. I'm hurt by our industry. I mean, Eden and I talk about it all the time. And I feel
every day.
Yeah, Eden, please.
No,
Yeah, please,
weigh in.
go ahead. Yeah.
No, we do. I mean, we talk about it every day. We were actually on Marco Poloing each other, and then they said, "I'm going live right now," and it was, you know, I think it's just, you know, those of us who are, and I want to choose my words carefully, but those of us who are taking notice of everything, intentionally looking. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so when you feel there's only a few of you out there who are trying to be loud and trying to have a voice for the voiceless, and trying to support it, it can feel very heavy.
And lonesome, I would think. I mean, if there's just a small group and you don't know, turn to the left, turn to the right. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't hear you right, but as the two of you were talking, Karen, you said, I'm going live right now. This is it. That's exactly how it came to be. Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually how it was. I was so hurt by what we weren't doing for each other, how we weren't caring for each other as an industry. And I had to release it. And this is the other thing I just want to put out there, like this idea of going live, truthfully, it's the only way for us to be a part of community right now. And I think that that's something that is lost on a lot of people right now, because we can't commune, we can't come together.
Right.
Social media has actually afforded us this extension. And it also, I have friends now because of social media, people that I really care about, that I never met. I've never actually breathed the same air as them. And they're really huge parts of my life. And so saying going live is like, I want to be a part of my community. I want to hear what they have to say. And I want to be a part of this in some capacity. So I just want to point that out.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think within this past year, I mean, Ann and I just connected a few days ago and have been talking every day now. And now, you make a connection with someone that you don't meet, but here you are on, this is something, a medium and something that we can connect on. We don't have the stages to perform on. We're not seeing each other eye to eye, touching, holding hands. And so this has been very helpful. Do you both think the industry is built on the foundation of oppression?
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%. Oppression and white supremacy.
Yeah. Can
you talk about that a little more? I mean,
go ahead, Eden.
I think that, we've been conditioned, right, to be quiet and be grateful. And that was always something. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to be difficult. You don't want to be labeled as a diva or any of these things, right? So that is conditioned into your psyche at a very early age. And I'm sure even earlier now, because these younger generations start training at like 8 years old, and so you kind of are conditioned to say, well, this is just the way it is, and accept it and be quiet. And realize that there's a line full of people behind you that you're easily replaced. But the more, I'm just going to speak from the eye, like the more work that I've done this year, the more trainings I've done, the more digging I've done to look at white supremacy, to look at how I've benefited from white supremacy, to look how I may have been a part of white supremacy at some point. It's when you dive into that work, it's like you've been given a new prescription for your glasses, and you can't unsee and you can't unhear. And it's, it's incredibly disheartening and frustrating to have certain conversations with people who haven't. And then I'm just like, you're right on the other side. If you would just do a little bit more self-examination, and realization that every person in this country is a product of white supremacy and oppression. It is in the DNA of how we think, how we speak, how we act, all of it. And to deny that is incredibly naive. And I feel like you're choosing, especially at this point. I mean, it's been here forever, right?
Of course.
Obviously, slavery, running, like we could list. It's always been in our faces. But now, after the pandemic, after everything we've seen, because we've been at home, if at this point you're still defending certain behaviors that this country shows and exemplifies, I have a very hard time accepting that. And I'm working on my radical empathy. I'm really working on it. But I'm just like, are you kidding me? You honestly don't see this? It's insane.
And frustrating. Yeah. And, sometimes you want to scream. I mean, I think it's made a huge division within families and friends. And I mean, I can only speak, on a personal level, but, with myself, friends that I've lost and family that I don't want to talk to because of that, because there's no sense of being woke. and there's no sense of wanting to educate and wanting to learn more. It's hurtful. I mean, you go through all of those emotions. Karen, you agree?
I do, but I think it's less about even being woke sometimes. I think it just has to do with like, it's about humanity. It's like, this is another human being that is standing right next to me and is going through something. And if I don't care about it, then that really says a lot more about me. And when we talk about all these different systems of oppression, it just shows up in so many different facets of our everyday life. It just doesn't, I'm almost like, a lot of people are saying like, oh, have you done the training? Have you done the reading? And I'm like, are you human? All of that aside, we should be able to like hit at least a certain level of humanity in which someone hurting means something to you, regardless of how it benefits you or doesn't benefit you. That's the base, I think.
Yeah. I wanted to just ask for one moment in time here about, you both have stood in casts where there are people from the global majority who have been hand in hand with you, have been through rehearsal processes with you. And outside of the students that you teach, I'm talking about the professionals in the industry. What do you feel as members of the global majority we deserve, as far as being treated well, as far as being seen? What do you feel we deserve?
It's funny. I I remember I did a panel during this right before the results of the election. And I remember noticing how often everyone said that Biden was decent. Well, he's a decent man. And I'm like, that decent is like obviously a compliment, right? But for me, it's like, we are just so starved for decency. And I'm like, we deserve to be treated decently, and we haven't. And we might not have ever noticed it before or really thought like it could change. But that's a conversation that Karen and I have constantly, of just like, if everyone realized their worth and their power, if we really all banded together, then there would be no other option. There really wouldn't. I mean, yes, there's other people who would do the job, but like after a while, and so it's like, we deserve more than decency. But
I agree.
The conditions emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually that you go through in this industry, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so I'd like to ask for more than decency, but I would settle for decency.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I agree completely.
I
have a little bit of a long question, so bear with me. Yeah. Peter Marks, the Washington Post journalist who published the most recent Scott Rudin announcement, is taking a lot of heat for saying Broadway is an industry that is short on visionary leaders. There's obviously a lot to unpack there, but I think something worth noting is that one very plain and glaring false characterization that made the way to print reveals something much larger. This work extends much further beyond these single bad actors who warrant our critique. Scott Rudin or Peter Marks, what we're up against is a zeitgeist of internalized oppression. Those with proximity to whiteness who hold power in every corner of the theater ecosystem still can't see our visionaries. My question for the two of you, I know that was long, my apologies. My question for the two of you, of our industry's visionaries that I'm speaking to, is how can we let our visionaries emerge where it matters? And what is it going to take to shed all of this internalized oppression that has gone unchecked among white people in power for so long?
I'm going to start with a redistribution of assets and power, I think, is the first thing. I think that the reason that they can't see that there are other people that would be visionaries is that they hold the purse strings, and they lack vision. I mean, if you think about the amount of people who are not white, let's just say it, that have been allowed to direct and write and produce and all of these things. Are you telling me that these are the only people who have vision? No, you haven't allowed anyone else in. And when we look at other places in the world and we see the work that everyone here tries to truly appropriate, we could have those rich ancestral stories, those people who are conduits for something higher and greater, but you won't let them in because you don't recognize them as visionaries. So you obviously don't know what you're doing. So why don't you stand aside and allow other people in? You haven't been making the right calls.
But
Agreed.
that takes self-awareness and humility.
Humility.
Yeah. To know that, to admit that, like, I don't know everybody that matters.
Yeah, there's this whole concept of decentering whiteness. And I think a lot of people are scared of, oh, well, that's racist. Or, yeah, no, calm down. It's not racist. It just means that there are many other points of view to take into consideration, and that we're not denouncing white people. We're decentering the concept of whiteness.
Thank you, Anne.
And its connection to supremacy, its connection to patriarchal forms and modalities. It's just making room. It's not, throwing the Mayflower in the dumpster. Okay. It's just about making room and creating space because we have a rich tapestry. I'm wondering if both of you can talk a little bit about how your feelings on social justice and where we're headed, and where, if I may, where you feel your visionary thought affect going to lead us. Did I fade out?
Just
one-
that
You
last
did, but
line.
I think the last line was, where is your organization going to lead us? Is
Yeah,
that
where
right?
is
Yeah.
AFECT headed?
Where's
Where are
AFECT
we
going to lead
headed?
us?
Yeah, the vision.
Eden, do you want to go?
I want you to go.
Okay. Well,
It's okay. You don't. We're speaking in sketch.
Yes.
We're speaking in draft.
Yes.
We love that.
Eden and I, when this all began last summer, we had a very specific idea about what we wanted AFECT to do. And then as we started to do a little bit more introspection, we realized that we had, because of our proximity to whiteness, and because we had been so fortunate and we had been under this sort of white umbrella and profited so much, we were like, we're probably not really clear on what needs to happen here. And so then we ended up taking a month off and like doing a lot of training and reading a lot. And then we realized, we came back and we were like, oh, this is actually what AFECT is. We're more of an assist org when it comes to racial justice. So there are a slew of other organizations that are Black led, that are doing what they need to do because the community is telling them, and they are the community. And so Eden and I basically are offering our organization to them and saying, how can we lift up whatever you want? Mm-hmm. How can we amplify? How can we be infrastructure for you? And I think that that's where AFECT should live. It's the only right place right now for us. Eden, do you want anything? Is there anything to add to that?
No, I think also just like, shining light on, the financial infrastructures and how, I think that there are a lot of artists in the community that I was one of them, which is why, this whole thing started, but I just didn't understand it. I didn't know it. I didn't understand it. And so therefore I didn't know what questions to ask or what to look for, what to say, like, no, this doesn't seem right. And so I think that's, we want to provide that as well for artists and for stakeholders, audience members as well, to understand their purchasing power, to understand where their money goes, and to just know the business more, the business side of the show business.
So if you don't mind, can we go back a little bit to the show me the receipts thing that, how long ago was that, Karen? May I ask?
It was last week.
Wait, do you mean
You mean the show that we
No,
did?
the Niederlander,
oh, that was last summer, wasn't
last
it?
summer.
Yeah.
So was that a catalyst for things to come? I mean, I know that was an extremely heartbreaking thing to take in and to know. And I was listening to an interview you were doing, and you were talking about it, and you were getting emails from these people that were saying, why are you doing this to me? How could you do this to me? How could you take my name and splash it all around and say I'm a bad person? How could I be a bad person? You've done a show of mine, and you were like,
I didn't give Trump money. You did.
right. Right.
What are you?
That's
why
right.
are you bringing your problem to my doorstep?
Right.
I think that it was always going to happen this way. Eden and I had actually texted before those videos came out. We were, when we saw it really close to the same time, and we both worked in Niederlander houses.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that people would come to see shows because we were in them. We have like these fan base. And so
Absolutely.
there was like this guilt. I felt for myself, I felt guilt, and I felt like I had been duped, and I felt like I was, this person who was chipping away at our democracy. I actually helped some money go in the direction of that person. And so there was this, like, I have to be careful. I have to make sure that every single time I help someone make money, I know where it's going and I can control that, because if I ever end up in this position again, it's my own fault. So that was kind of for me, that's what it was. I mean, Eden, I can't speak for you. I think
it was similar. I actually felt like I had one of those scenes in a movie when like things start spinning and you're it's like right when you're about to pass out. Like I had a physical reaction, and I was angry, and then I was angry at myself for not educating myself more and for trusting our union and producers and theater owners to walk the walk and talk the talk, and I felt the same. I mean, we were having multiple conversations a day, and then that's how AFECT started.
So the mission statement, I have them here, and I would love to read them unless you know them by heart. Do you mind if I read it for a minute? I mean, I think
Please.
listeners, for the benefit of artists, consumers of art, and stakeholders of the live theater industry, Artists for Economic Transparency aims to educate stakeholders about the inner workings of the theater industry to encourage financial accountability and transparency for industry leaders. Number one. 2, promote public discussion of how the theater industry's organizational and financial structures uphold institutional biases with a focus on their impacts on historically marginalized communities. 3, empower and promote the creation of grassroots solutions to encourage equity, diversity, inclusion in the theater industry. 4, encourage consumers to make informed decisions regarding where they spend their money. And 5, empower artists to negotiate and advocate for best practices in their labor environment and enable them to make informed decisions regarding who they associate with. I got to say, within those 5, those are just incredible. They are so straightforward and to the point.
So powerful.
Yeah. How did you, how long did it, number one, how long did it take for the two of you? And I know you have a board as well, but to come up with this mission statement and everything that you're going to do and that you're doing now?
It took a while. I mean, I'd say we just recently kind of got everything figured out. I mean, I think it was important for Karen and I for these words to come from our hearts, and not from, somebody that was on our board. Like it was, we sat down and like workshopped this for a while, because I think that we've never done this before, so there was a lot of, I think I can speak for both of us in saying there was a lot of like trepidation. There was a lot of imposter syndrome. There was a lot of, we're actors. Like, what do we know about all this? But I think it was, those were things that we wanted to see and we want to provide and we want people to come to us for. So like they're very honest desires that we hope to uphold.
What do you need? What do you need from us? What do you need from people that want to give their time and their energy and their knowledge? And I mean, there are lawyers and doctors. I mean, there's room for everybody in AFECT. Tell me what you need.
We need a numbers person, someone who loves looking at spreadsheets, because that's one of the things, like, we picked, financial transparency because it was something that we felt like we had really, it was the thing that got us talking, right? But one of the things that Eden and I are learning as we go is that we have our strengths, and this might be one of our weaknesses, is the money thing, And so we put ourselves in positions where we love getting in rooms with people who are smarter than us when it comes to this, because we're trying to learn. And the amount of people that come to us and help us only makes us stronger. And then they become a part of our family. But people who really just enjoy looking at spreadsheets and really figuring out budgets and trailing money. I think that that's the thing, that we have everything else covered. I just don't like cracking out a calculator. So that's not my favorite thing.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It's definitely not my strength. So yeah.
We do other things.
Let's talk about reparations for a second. Artistic reparations. Your union's complicit behavior in holding back payment, and realizing that I understand that some things we just can't talk about. But I just want to put it out there and ask you, what can your union actually do to repair the damage and the systemic erasure of money that is actually supposed to be going into actor pockets and stage manager pockets? Let's not forget the stage managers.
Let's not forget stage managers.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well,
we work
Eden,
well
you
together.
start. Eden, you start. Karen, you go.
I don't want to be, I don't want to be negative.
No.
But I honestly, the more and more we dig into this side of what we're looking at, the more and more I'm convinced that like we just need to divest and start again. Because that's how equity was started in the first place. And somehow over time, like maybe when those generations moved on and a new group of people came in, it somehow changed. And the relationship with the producers and theater owners became very incestuous and very much in the favor of them and less for us. And it's really difficult for me to look at our union and think that it's going to do a complete 180, because it's really hard for me to believe that. I want to. I just it's difficult for me to actually envision that. That's where I'm at.
Karen?
I also think that there's this argument that we hear a lot from Actors Equity that says, well, the membership doesn't show up. And I've been in the union for like almost a little over 20 years, and you haven't been showing up for me since day one. And so it's cyclical. It's like, if I come to you and I scream into the void and you do nothing. So then of course I'm not going to show up. Of course I'm not going to vote. You're not listening to me. You're not doing the thing. This connection is bad. And so, there's a part of me that feels for the people who are working for equity right now, who keep saying, just come and talk. And I want to say to them, like, have you not been here? Did you just show up? You know, my first Broadway show, I got wrangled into being the equity deputy as a swing. And I read the manual from front to back. And back in those days, you had like all of these forms that you were supposed to fill out. And so I was like, yo, I'm doing this thing. I went there, I went to my first meeting, and they looked at me like I was crazy when I was like, where do I put my forms? And they were like, no one fills out those forms. And I was like, no, like, why would you give them to me? And they're like, yeah, you just like sit and listen. And if you have an issue, you raise your hand, you talk about it. And then I was like, oh, this doesn't work.
Oh.
Wow.
This is not working. That was my first Broadway show.
Wow.
And then
So
it just
it's
kind
like-
of falls to the wayside. Like
Yeah.
you just forgotten about.
I
So
think that's what they want you to do. They're hoping, you
Yeah.
know,
that
that's
is
how
just kind of forgotten about.
yeah.
And this is the thing. I mean, I think we saw this. Like, if you saw that show, you know, The Receipts with Davon Williams, so we have these incredible minds, these artists who have incredible minds. And the only reason that someone like Davon Williams was able to do all of the work that he was able to do was because this industry stopped, came crashing to a halt. And if you think about it, there was a period of time in when we didn't work these crazy hours. We didn't have like the Wednesday off schedule. You know, there was like, it wasn't always great, but it was less abusive. And what we've seen over time is Actors Equity has allowed the amount of work that we do to be so horrid that we can barely do the work, much less advocate for ourselves in spaces. And once the shutdown happened, everyone was like, okay, let me look at my bank account. What? I've been working for 20 plus years and I'm broke?
Jeez.
You know, the union's not answering my phone calls.
Yeah.
They want dues, but I'm not working. I'm going to lose my health insurance. And then these brilliant minds started working on something.
Yeah.
But they've been keeping us
But that's
hitting the
after,
pavement.
That's after the union would literally say to them, it's probably best if you just drop this.
I see. So just make it go away.
Yeah.
It's probably best if you just leave this alone.
Yeah.
An injury report. You know, these things that you're supposed to be there for us. You know, it's insane.
Well, Devon's whole journey, and I just have to lift this king up for a second.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
You know
that
what?
was
Devon
incredible.
was-
Unreal.
He's a warrior. He has the receipts.
And I'm sorry, just tell our audience who Devon is and what this was that they did.
So Devon has this show called The Receipts, and it started, I guess the impetus of it started because he was involved in a horrible accident where he was riding a bike that malfunctioned and was almost hit by, I believe, an 18-wheeler or some large industry truck or industrial truck. And when he went to get the health care, you know, the health care through equity was messed up and they were kind of denying him all the full treatment. And, you know, and so he started unpacking and discovering all of these issues within the union and started to bring them to light. Well, not so, just in our last week, basically, he was delivered some information, and I am not part of the union. I can say that right now. My name is Ann James. I am not a union member, but he uncovered some very unsavory information about the payment structure on tour when actors go on tour, and how these monies are siphoned above and over the actors and into the pockets of producers. And so he brought that to light most recently. And then he is also the writer, the author of the Black Theater Matters bill, which he is pushing through. This Black Theater Matters bill has a list of demands that he is bringing forward and that can be voted on by members. So if you are curious about that, you can go to convention delegates at actorsequity.org and sign on to this bill, because isn't it this week that equity is meeting? Isn't it just, it's happening.
Yeah, it's
So
happening.
if you want to add your name to that and you are listening, please
do.
go to convention delegates at actorsequity.org and help Devon bring this to light, specifically for Black people, but then for all actors in the union, to make situations like transparency, financial transparency,
Mhm.
something that is normalized as opposed to hidden in the shadows.
Right. It's not, it's, you're not shoving it down, the drain. It's not, it should be very transparent to the actors, and whether a show, the actors need to know if a show recouped or if it not recouped, because that makes a big difference to the actor's bank account, or whether they're
And when it
making,
recoups.
right, when it recoups. So he does incredible work. And the show that you all did, was it last week, was just incredible, and we can put some information up on it on our site about it. So I think when it comes to a lot of the movement work, individuals become really galvanized towards a cause when they can see ways in which they hold themselves and therefore can wield power. To our listeners, is there anything you might be willing to share about any lessons you've learned in the ways in which you hold your power as an artist, as a citizen, or a community member? And right now, what does the power look like? I think it's so important. We have so many young people that listen to the show and watch the show, and you two have been in the business for a while and have had some success, and there's time where you have power, and there's what, I'm going to shut up now, and so you can just answer the question. My apologies.
What's funny is, Karen and I are both educators and obviously vocal on social media about what we stand for, what we believe in. And the more younger generations of people that we connect with, they are ready. They're speaking out. They are, it's more our generation that that I wish. I understand the fear. I'm scared all the time. But I'm sleep well at night because I'm acting on my convictions. So I just want us to recognize our worth and our power and the power of saying no. Like I will not be I will not be lending my artistry and my talents to this production unless these things are changed. And
you want proof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way, right?
Yeah. You'd have to.
Talk is cheap.
Sure is. We've noticed that in the last 4 years, but absolutely, it sure is.
Yeah, there's power in and coming from a place of love. I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't think anything good comes of it. There's no chance for growth or learning. And so when I have an offer come across my table and I ask my agent to, can we talk about why this entire creative team is white? This is something that just happened. Mm-hmm. And people are willing to talk about it and willing to make changes and willing to have a Zoom and be like, yes, I want to hear where you're coming from. What are your concerns? We've been made aware of that and we're making this, you know what I mean? And so when you're honest about where you're coming from and that I want to make art, I want to be a part of this. I love theater. I love Broadway, but like, not this version.
Yeah.
So I just want people to know that like we do have the power, and if you feel beholden to whatever this illusion of an industry is, then I'm just sad, because then I feel ultimately that you don't know how valuable you are, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, me too. Karen, what about you? But especially now, since you've been through a lot in the past 2 weeks.
Nah.
No? Okay, well.
No, I'm kidding.
From this side,
trying to keep it light.
Okay, all right. Light and breezy.
Honestly, it was a conversation that I had with Anne when we were doing our lives about boundaries that really, it started to dawn on me that over my entire career, I had let my boundaries they would not been defined. And it was like I sort of allowed someone to step over the line just a little bit, and then over time a little bit more, and then before I knew it, I had no boundaries. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about, you know, as a person of color and someone who's gender nonconforming. Like, I cannot afford in spaces to not claim all of my space, because I can be hurt, I can be targeted for that, right? And so when I think of like how I act in life, I have to be my fullest and biggest self, because I can't afford for anyone to think that they can take advantage of me, because that's what our world is sort of showing us. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm like, I'm speaking up and I'm taking my power back. I am petrified. I talk to Eden about this all the time. I'm like, just because I speak out, people think I'm really strong, but I'm like quaking inside as I'm doing it. But I know that something worse can happen to me if I don't. And not to mention,
or someone else.
To someone else.
Yeah.
You know, I have a daughter who watches me. I have students who look up to me. If I allow these things to happen to me, I tell them it's okay for them. And so I have a responsibility to model courageousness in spaces, even when I do not feel courageous, because that's the duty of having a platform, and that's the duty of being someone in this industry.
I love you.
I love you.
Oh my God, that just fed me so much food.
Yes.
That was really beautifully said. Was there a moment when that was done? I know you were terrified. You said you hung up the phone with Eden. You went live. Was there a release after? You know, it's really none of my business. But I mean, was it? Oof, fuck.
No, I shook for 48 hours. I shook so badly that I could barely put water. I could barely hold the water to my mouth. That's how bad I shook, because it was almost like, I could feel
later. Yeah. And
I could feel like
their legs
energy.
gave out.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually talking, and then all of a sudden I was like, I have to sit down, everyone.
I just
Like
heard
my
their
body
voice going, I'm here. I'm just on the floor. My legs won't hold me anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's
your body, you know, that's your body telling you, you know, you probably blew your adrenals out. You had a lot of adrenaline, a lot of endorphins. I mean, that is the somatic release there, just chemically speaking, that was probably bottled up for a very, very, very long time. And when we start talking about trauma, we not only talk about trauma in the moment, we talk about generational trauma. We talk about ancestral trauma. So this might have been a very releasing moment of a lot of things that you had been professional trauma that you had been holding for a long time. And I'm so glad you sat down and let that kind of course through you. And of course the body rebalances itself, but I just want to commend you for taking that route, even though it was a dangerous route. You took the route because of not only you, the selfishness, you know, I mean, I can't. And you are thinking about your students. Can you talk to me a little bit, or us, about your students and what you teach them, what you instill in them to get out into this world and try to make it to the great white way? How do you prepare them for that?
I don't prepare them for the great white way, because I know what it is. I actually teach them everything that they will be stripped of if they go there, which is agency. It's like, what is, you know, we were going to do like a coaching this semester. And then I was like, we shouldn't do a coaching. We should do a salon. We should do an artist salon. You should just come in and bring the art that you're inspired to do. You have a poem you wrote, read that. You want to talk about something that you saw. You want to show me art that you made last night? Great, let's do that. Because what we keep doing is we put these students in this factory, these PWIs with these incredible musical theater degrees, and then we strip them of everything that makes them unique, and then we shove them out there, and then they try to duplicate what they've seen, win awards. And so I was like, we shouldn't do that. We should definitely just like build up this human being. I think about, like, I'm basically like their cheerleader. I gas them up. I find out as much as I can about them, and then I like pick out all of the great things that they think that are scary, and then I keep pushing them up in front and showing them how wonderful it is, and lead with that. Speak your mind. Do all the things that you want to do. When you feel something, say something about it. Listen to your body. Your body says you don't want to tap anymore. Don't tap. I hate tap, but that's why I say that. But like just so many. There's so many things that we just take from them. And I'm thinking they're going there. They're all super talented. They're going there. I can't stop them. The least I can do is give them a little bit of armor so that when they get there, they don't get steamrolled. But Eden and I talk about this all the time with students, like how building them up is everything.
Yeah.
You have to.
And all these people are a lot of students going to me myself went to a master's program and it was great training. But when I got out of there, I had no idea who the F I was. I had no clue.
Oh my God, Eric.
No clue.
It's the worst.
And it's like the training was great. And now, just now, as I hit a certain age, I understand it a lot more than I did 30 years ago. But that is the key to it. What you guys just said, it is the building up all the time. Stop stripping all this away. What makes me unique, is what would have made me work as an actor. And, you're just learning that now. Eden, what about you? And you teach as well.
Yeah, I don't teach at a conservatory or anything any longer. I used to, and now I just have private students and teach master classes and such. But it's a lot of the same. I think when you have taught at a university level, you start to see exactly what Karen said, that everything that makes this person special is diluted and stripped away. And so they don't know who they are. And then by the time they're done with school, they are burnt out and
Exhausted.
Are already, bitter and I don't over it. And so it's also reminding them what's the joy? Why did you want to do this in the first place? It's not just about execution. You don't have to be perfect. It's also being young and growing up with social media. The constant comparison game is just, they're comparing themselves to people who've been in the industry 20, 30, 40 years. Well, it will never be as good as enter in anybody else. I'm like, you're 19 years old. They are 45.
Right.
You're not supposed to be. Also, you're in school. This is not about nailing it. This is about mistakes and failing and learning and growing. And so you already are ingrained of I can't mess up. I can't mess up. I have to be perfect. When you're in a class, it's just...
Yeah, we're already looking for the results.
Exactly.
We want the results without doing any of the work in between. So
Correct.
I want to get from here to the Tony Award without doing any of the work.
Right.
People don't even teach process anymore. And that freaks me out.
Yeah.
And that's why they're going to the results, is because they don't understand how they understand material.
Correct. Tell
They
me
can't
what to
break
do.
down a script, right?
Tell me step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 equals result. And if I just do what you tell me to do, then I should get the result. And when they don't get the result, because that's not the way that they would process things or internalize or express, then they're heartbroken and they're defeated. And that just creates a very toxic cycle with yourself, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just learned something too. So this platform is designed to uplift the off-Broadway community. Can you talk about how off-Broadway and maybe Broadway fits into the conversation about transformational justice and reform in our industry? And are there artistic leaders in the community doing that kind of work already that warrants more of our collective attention and support?
Can I just say that I feel like there shouldn't be a delineation between the two?
Okay.
I've never really,
Good.
It's never really, someone said, what's the difference between downtown and uptown? And they're like, money. And I'm like, the art is the same. Like, why have we split it? And maybe it's because it's real estate, right?
Right.
But some of the most incredible work I've ever seen is in a tiny little black box theater downtown somewhere,
Right.
and I'm not understanding why it's not valid until it goes to one of these specific stages.
Right.
So I think, like, why don't we change that model first? First of all, like, more theaters. And really, this is where I'm looking at the Tony Awards. Stop awarding things.
Ugh.
Stop awarding things. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't understand what best means. There is no best. Impactful, distinguished, groundbreaking, best. I think if we stop doing these kinds of things, what is considered off Broadway will be just as valid as Broadway.
Yeah.
You know, like it used to be in the 50s and the 60s. I once had this incredible conversation with Estelle Parsons about what it was like in the 60s to get really dressed up and go. The off-Broadway show was the thing to go to.
Right.
That was the thing, getting dressed up and going to something off-Broadway. And the times of Lucille Lortel, you know, our theater is named after her, and the what it was like during that time to see these masters, you know, do Brecht and all of these incredible shows that were downtown, and they weren't considered artsy, you know. It just, you got dressed up and you went to see these incredible shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love the ethos of the Lortel, you know, the ethos of being forward in the global majority, forward in people who don't have an opportunity to be in a Broadway show, forward. You know, for me, the Lortel is where it's at. And yes, I did say that. I realize I'm on live at the Lortel, but I would say that if I were not. I would say that if I were not, because I have a lot of respect for the genius of this theater and of you know, the ethos of bringing forward marginalized people, people of color, people of the global majority, and giving them a shot, which is far more interesting from my point of view. I wanted to ask you both, what do you do? We're going to switch gears for just a second. And I want to think about what you do in order to take care of yourselves in this moment. See, Karen, see, I already see. Already.
The eyes are open and wide. Now she's going down. All right.
What are we doing as far as self-care?
I mean, I'm not the best at it. I'm going to be honest. But for me, what it is being true to my feelings at whatever moment, and being willing to lean on the people that say that they're there for me. So like people that hold space for me to cry, to scream, I'm here, I'm holding you, I'm lifting you up. And that's not something I've always been. I'm good at providing that for people, but I haven't always been good at being the one to be able to open up, or, for lack of a better term, burden them with my emotions, you know? And so I'm getting much better at that, at leaning on people and just saying like, are you okay? No, actually I'm not. And do you have the space to like have a combo, you know? And so I'm blessed and grateful that I have, you know, a handful of greats that I'm able to do that with, Karen being one of them. So that is something that really does help me. You got to feel it to heal it, right? So if I need to have a good cry, I'm going to have the cry. If I need to literally scream and do the 1, 2, 3, like, like, you know, I'll do it. So those are things that are really like helping me move through feelings right now.
Karen, what about you?
I drink water. I drink water. Wait, no, this is actually the one that really does.
They need to.
Okay.
Look, I listen to my body. It didn't give me a choice, honestly, but I actually spend a lot of time hugging my dog and cradling my dog, because it sort of reminds
Emotional
me.
support.
Yeah, it reminds me that there is that I'm strong enough to protect something when I'm feeling like, well, I'm like disassociating. I'm like out of my body. I can't even really feel my hands anymore. Picking him up and like hearing his little heartbeat and like feeling his lungs go in and out and knowing that I'm holding all of his weight and I'm the one that's responsible for him.
I love that.
Brings me back. But that's it. I need to do better. I need to probably eat a vegetable.
I'm going to be on you.
I have a question from the audience, ladies. And hello, audience. I'm sorry, I'm just getting to you now. Kayla Q asks, how are you improving your skills and or yourself as a person in quarantine? That's Kayla Q.
Thanks, Kayla.
Well, I'm like really honing in on new skills.
Like what?
Like starting a nonprofit.
Like something little like that. Okay, sorry.
No, but I mean, I think that like the pandemic, I really took advantage of the opportunity for expansion and started like fell in love with things that I forgot that I loved and that I had a knack for, photography. And I started like making and selling shirts and, just like things like that and feeling like, oh yeah, there are a lot of things about me that, I'm good at, not just singing and acting. And that's been a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Are you selling the shirts?
Yes. At the moment I'm not, but I will be again. Yes.
Okay. Well, is it an Etsy shop or is there something that we can?
Not yet, but I was just doing it through Instagram, but I'm sure I might do an Etsy shop.
I have some pieces. They're great.
Oh, I can't wait to see. Karen, what about you? Kay the Q wants to know what improving your skills.
Yeah, I during quarantine I decided I was going to go back to school. So why not? So I started taking psychology and human sexuality and really sort of like diving into a lot of things that I think that I just overlooked over time. And so I feel like I'm learning a lot. Psychology is so fascinating. It's actually making me understand a lot of things that I knew about tactics and acting that are just like things that are built into human beings. So, and I also realized like, I do like to learn. It just has to be something, I mean, I'll write a paper, but I have to really care about it. So I think maybe there might be some more education, like my own education in the future. But that's something that I'd never really done before. And I've been doing a lot of lately.
So I have another question from Summer Fall. Second question. Will we ever have the opportunity to see Karen and Eden live on stage somewhere in the future? So Karen and Eden, as of right now, the way Broadway is, you guys aren't very I'm sorry. It's a question. You're not very interested in the way Broadway is right now. I can only because I read this about Karen. Eden, I'll ask you next. Karen, you're not interested in the way Broadway is right now in going back.
Yeah, no, if they could get it together, if they could figure it out, if they could figure out a model that like didn't like use the human beings who make the art as disposable, then I would absolutely jump back on a stage because it is my passion to make art. That's never going to change. Yeah, I mean, Eden and I have done work together in the past. One day we'll do it again, I think.
I hope so.
Eden, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are producers out there that are doing the right model and plan to come back with even more intention and even more action. And so I look forward to working with people like that. The older I get and the more I'm in this industry, the more I realize like I'm more of an off-Broadway material wise. I'm less and less commercial Broadway. But I mean, I hope to, but it's just interesting now. You make a very public vow and people, you have to really be careful and do your vetting and make sure that all of the ducks are in a row. So
yeah, but I also want to make something clear. I mean, the two of you have not blatantly said, I will never work on Broadway again.
No.
What you're saying is the way the model is right now. I don't want anybody to come back and be like, well, she said that she'd never work on Broadway again. I mean,
No.
that's not
Oh,
what
That's never come out of my mouth.
we're saying there. We're saying the way it's built now,
Correct.
it's not something you're interested in.
It's
And
not
I'm saying
sustainable.
I'm willing to sacrifice that part of my career within that 10-block radius. I've just made it through an entire year without it. I actually
Right.
haven't been on Broadway since 2008, and I'm doing just fine. So, I'm willing to sacrifice that part for believing in something better, or that we deserve something better.
Same.
good.
You absolutely deserve something better. I mean,
Right.
yeah, the whole question of re-preparing and redistributing and kind of taking a moment to pause and reflect and then take action like you are with AFECT is something that's really quite remarkable and special. We're not willing, and I think the people who support you, we're not going to let you just not come back. But we also don't
No,
want
ma'am.
you to come back into a toxic environment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it looks to me like you're doing the right steps of self-care to take care of that right now, and to not go back into that. So we're getting very close to 8. I could keep you on here for a few more hours if you don't mind. You don't have anything to do you? So
Wow,
nowhere to
shade,
go, right?
shade.
I love Karen and Eden. You said, I'm going to make art with people that I think match my integrity. It's out there, though.
It is.
It's there.
It is.
Yeah.
It's definitely there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And with the help of your organization, I think I can't wait to see what that is next. We have one more question from the audience, if you don't mind. Trisha Nicole, what is your advice on how to stay true to your art when there are lots of standards pushed against you? Hi, Trisha Nicole. Good question.
Go ahead.
You have to be willing to say no. You have to be willing to you have to know what you're willing to compromise and what you're not willing to compromise. I think that would help. That's helped me this last year for sure. And know that like what you have is singular to anyone else on this planet. There's nobody like you.
Don't let people take that away. Strip it away.
No.
Karen, what about you?
Karen?
I would say, I tell my students I'm really happy about the work that I've done, but I'm even happier about the work that I said no to. And it's always like, I always follow my gut. People are like, but it's going to make you this amount of money. And I'm like, and it feels wrong. So I can't do it. And they're like, well, what do you mean it feels wrong? And I'm like, my stomach says no. And they're like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. This is just the way that I vet things. You get that feeling. Listen to your gut, listen to your instincts. If it smells rotten, walk away from it. You're not going to make great art. And all of the right things will end up being in your path when you do that. When you train the universe to be ready for you, and you're like, I'm not dealing with all that BS. It clears a path for you. So just listen to your gut.
I love that we can end on that. Karen Olivo, Eden Espinosa, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy. I know this came together very quickly, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart to come on here and talk about how we can build something new and how your organization will help that. My queen, thank you for co-hosting with me today. You are just a piece of magic. And Eden, sorry, I have to say this out loud. Your Trina in falsettos was just unfucking believable.
Thank you so
I got a
much.
chance to see it, and
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And that is our show. I cannot thank Eden and Karen enough for joining us this evening. As I said at the top of the show, this episode came together very quickly in response to the ongoing news events. We are so grateful to Karen and Eden for making the time to talk about their important work in this space and doing it at the last minute. If you want to learn more about AFECT, check it out at their website, AFECTchange.org. Remember, AFECT is spelled with only one F, as in Frank. And it's going across the screen right now, www.affectchange.org. Also, masterminds in math, they need a math person, a numbers person.
Yes.
And thank you, Anne, for pinch hitting, hosting with me tonight. You are magic. This Monday, April 26th, Joy and I will interview the incredible Sydney James Harcourt, and we will talk about Hamilton, Girl from North Country, and many of his other projects. In May, we have a lot more exciting guests lined up, and I will share all those names of guests with you next week. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I did. If you did, please take a moment and press the like button and subscribe. For news about upcoming guests, check out our website, liveathelortel.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We will see you next Monday at 7 o'clock. Stay healthy, wear a mask, and thank you for joining us. Karen Olivo, Eden Espinosa, I applaud your incredible work that you are doing. I adore you both, and I cannot wait to see what is next. And thank you for your voice of your own voices, and for the people that don't have one. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for having us.
I think you're both incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody. Please stay
Bye.
safe. We'll see you really, really soon at the theater.
Yes.
Good night.